Welcome to our Sister Wives recap, season 19, episode 8, A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. I'm going to give this a solid A performance.
The first 10 minutes were blah.
I mean, it was okay. So we know we're going to get a lot of Christine and David. We got a lot of Christine and David. I was glad that we had a lot more footage of them than flashback or interview footage.
Yeah.
For sure. So we had seen...
They're not engaged. They went ring shopping.
Yes. One of my complaints was going to be, when I saw the sneak peek for Christine and David, I got a lot of pushback from people who are like, oh, people say they like Christine, and then when they actually talk about Christine, the people get mad. And I was like, okay, I don't know if that's directed at me or what. There are people who don't like Christine.
And their names are Robin and Kody.
I think there's a very large chunk of people who are frustrated with how the show is handling her storyline. Oh, and by the way, just for fun yesterday, I dyed my hair purple with the overtone. It'll be gone within a few weeks, but I didn't do a very good job. So like my fingernails are kind of pink. I don't know if you can see it. My ears are pink. So if you're looking at me going, God, her hair looks black. It looks like I dyed my hair black. It's just dark, dark purple. So I don't know if you can see. I can see it. I don't know if you can. Anyway, sorry.
Get your glasses.
So anyway, what I was going to say though is a lot of people there are some people who are frustrated, who don't like Christine, period. There are some people who don't like David, period. There are people who like Christine and David but are uncomfortable with her saying things like, I don't care how my kids feel. There are people who like Christine and David and don't like how the show's handling it, which is more of where I am. Most of my criticisms are just in terms of like, yeah, how they're handling it. And then there's people who love all of it. And anywhere in between. I don't really care where you are. Like, I don't have a personal... If this is a recap about liking the show or not liking the show, it's kind of all open game until you start, like, calling inappropriate names or call us names. I'm having to block, like, one person a week who's, like, just being an absolute jerk. And I'm like, I am not having a good enough week to have strangers call me a jerk and be okay with it.
We're not paid enough.
Absolutely not. Okay. So anyway, the first 10 minutes, Christine is explaining that Gwendolyn and Peyton have not met David yet. So that night, all of the other kids, Gwendolyn's not there, but Peyton are going to meet him. Now, I remember when, around this time,
all Peyton the kids are annoying this episode.
No, I didn't think so.
In the first 12 minutes.
Aspen?
Okay,
Isabel?
maybe not all the kids.
Isabel?
Most of the kids that get more screen time.
Truly?
So Tony and McKelty.
Okay.
And the tall guy.
Peyton?
Yeah.
Peyton's just kind of being well, the word I won't use.
He's fine. He's probably being just fine for being, mom's kid and stuff. But it's annoying. I know a lot of families do this whole like, hey, gotta give them a good ribbon, gotta check them, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. I don't necessarily want to be. I don't want to be hassled like that. So. Yeah, so what I would say is Peyton, about around this time, did a single podcast, and I think it went so badly for him, he never did another one. Oh, but in it, he said that he wasn't, I can't remember the wording he used. I'm sure someone in the comments will call me out on it, but it was something along the lines of like, the guy seems nice enough, but like, I'm not going to call him dad, or he's not a stepfather to me, or something like that. And at this time, it seemed oddly aggressive. But I mean, my attitude is like they've all had a tough year, and I have a little bit of empathy in my heart for them, especially Isabel. I don't know. I just think it's fair for them to be saying that they think it's all a little fast, all of that. So anyway, David comes in. Peyton's like, what did he say? Like, hey, Richard. And then Tony's like, who's Richard? And he's like, no one's Richard. I'm just giving him a hard time. And then he, like, to the camera says, David's really old. He's really old. He might be too old for Mom. He's not too old for Christine. They have a perfectly acceptable age gap between them. I think it's like, what, 5-6 years? I don't care.
Totally normal. I kind of thought him talking about how old David was a little bit like, oh boy, you're going to get there too one day. Let's not throw around the old word too much. A lot of Tony and McKelty leading the conversation. It was a little chaotic. I can't say that I gathered a lot from this, but it was something I had been complaining about privately. I hadn't done a video on yet, which is that TLC is doing them a disservice, just being like, here's a single date. Here they are picking out a wedding venue. Here they are picking out a ring. We know from the previews that next week they get engaged.
Oh wait, you haven't had enough Robin? We'll just interject her where it doesn't make any sense and we don't want to hear her. Nobody does. Well, let's have Robin.
Well, yeah. And then, after that they buy a house. And just showing these, like, fast forward lines and not days and days and days. And of course, they couldn't show us all the time in between. But this is what I was asking for, which is just some examples of them hanging out and dating and stuff. That wasn't just like, here they are making huge life-changing decisions and telling us how they don't care what the kids think.
Right.
So they explain, they have a date, October 22nd. It very ham-handedly gets pushed back to how big was their wedding, how big was Tony and McKelty's wedding, how big is their family. They explain that David had 2 sisters that were in polygamy. In one case, a sister left her partner and then he died, so she's not in it, and the other one just left. Was that what you got from it?
Yep.
And
if we're wrong...
They didn't give a lot more details because I was kind of expecting to say things like, she was one of this many, there's this many kids, and obviously, but they would never tell us stuff that we want to hear. They're just going to replay the old clips over and over again.
Speaking of stuff you don't want to hear, here's another clip from Robin that makes no sense and don't care.
So they did explain that David had already asked Christine's dad for permission to marry her, and her dad had given it to her enthusiastically.
Apparently he takes 15 minutes to get up from his chair. But he served David dinner.
He got him a plate. So there was that. Kody is sort of he's really grabbed onto this new dialogue, which
New shirt this episode. We're only 8 episodes in, and this is like the 3rd one? 4th one? 3rd one?
At least the 3rd one. At least the 3rd one. And he might have had it last week too. I forgot to track it.
And this one is plaid, and he is more unhinged, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I mean, you can really tell that these are recorded later, and it really gives you an insight into how he's doing. But he has started this new dialogue, which is that Christine left him to find her soulmate. Now, Christine did say that she did want to find a partner, but that was not what initially prompted her to leave.
Oh, tell the people what they want to hear. Does Kody care? Does Kody... No, is he up to date on like stuff we really don't care about? And the answer is he doesn't know anything.
Well, it's a general idea of like, instead of saying like, well, she left because you told her you no longer wanted to even work on a physical relationship and she was done because you already weren't spending time at her house, you already were neglecting her kids and ostracizing them. You didn't go with their daughter for this big surgery and made Christine feel really guilty.
You mean the vacation they went on? The vacation.
And then, I think I'm getting some of this out of order because I think the surgery came
out
after.
Of order.
No. But the idea was that it wasn't like she saw some hot dude and ran off for him. It was that her marriage was an absolute shambles.
And if you thought that was delusional, just wait.
So Aspen says it's really fast. Payton says it's really fast. McKelty says it's really fast. They talk again about how they want their mom.
Though?
No, not McKelty. Aspen, Isabel.
Yes.
McKelty didn't. Well, McKelty said a lot, but. So next week, David is going to meet Janelle and some of those kids.
And just, spoiler alert, Janelle's got some bangers in this episode.
Speaking of which, she says this. She says 2 bangers. This is the first one. He seems really nice, and he has a relationship with all his adult children.
That he raised himself for a long time.
His wife died. He raised 8 kids, and he has a good. And she goes, and he has a good relationship with all of them. And we were like, oh,
it was, yeah. It was the dig you think.
It was like a roast battle where everybody goes, oh, because it's like, guess who does not?
Yeah.
So they're going to get matching tattoos, Christine and David, and then they bring Kody back for him to say every step of the way was betrayal.
Yes. I don't know what the F he's talking about there, because that makes... unless he's talking about him with Robin and stealing everybody else's money. Yeah, betrayal. I can see that.
He just sees everything that is not people immediately bending a knee to him to be betrayal. And it's just...
I don't know that there's anybody, I don't know anybody who wants to live that way, and I don't for a second believe that that's how Robin lives with him. I don't for a second believe that. Okay, so now we cut over to Kody celebrating his 55th birthday. A lot of people were like, well, this is the wrong year to turn 55. Apparently Google has his birthday wrong. I didn't look into it because I didn't care that much, but a lot of people did in fact look into it and say, well, Google says he was born in 69, which would be 2024, which would be earlier this year, but I didn't even know this was a controversy until I stumbled across one of my mutual content creators who pulled up a speeding ticket from like 6 years ago that had his date as 68.
So let's just blame it on Google AI because it sucks.
Yeah. So he's talking about how 5 years ago he was in the middle of this family, that was his biggest priority, and he considered this to be the middle of his life.
And if by biggest priority he means ignoring 3 wives and spending time with one and her kids, then yeah, absolutely.
And then he said last night he stayed up late with Robin to talk about his morals and how he's really struggled with his morals through the divorce. That would be a
struggles with his morals or struggles with trying to find his morals?
I don't even know it. I don't even know what he thinks that means. Because I would say, yeah, he has some really crappy morals. He certainly is a huge hypocrite who has one set of rules for him.
That's very generous to say that he has any.
And that, well, he has a set of rules for him, which is whatever he wants. And he has a set of rules for everybody else, which is
whatever he wants.
Which is don't do whatever, yeah, don't do anything I don't want. It's terrible. But that's a conversation I would love to see. But of course, what we would get is this incredibly manufactured conversation. So who cares?
With a cutout in the snow for them to stand up and be.
And he does seem to imply that he wants to get back to being a good father. As near as I've heard.
And what that means is everybody should grovel at his feet and apologize to Robin, his betrayed wife.
And John, you're being ridiculous. Because they also have to apologize to him for not being loyal enough. Don't forget that, John.
Betrayal.
And frankly, the apologizing to Robin part is about not listening to what he says. When he says it's not Robin, that he runs the roost, it's a double betrayal when they get mad at Robin because it's implying that they know that he is in fact not.
And when he says they were all family during COVID and only sees one family during COVID.
And then
they should definitely apologize for that.
So he says he does have some guilt for not being more connected with the larger family, but as near as I can tell, he's not going to do anything. He just, they cut me off. And it's like, well, you could try. I mean, and the thing is, we see, coming up, we're going to see him try to reconcile with Janelle. And if this is any indication, which I believe it is.
We're not going to see that. But what we are going to see is him say that they both wanted to reconcile, but it wouldn't. I mean, the crazy talk is on a new level in this episode.
Well, if this is any indication of what he thinks trying to reconcile looks like, and I think it is, we know exactly why his kids aren't reconciling with him. It's because it means he shows up once every 8 or 9 months and says, should we reconcile? And then as soon as they say, well, this is one of the issues, he goes, no, that's all in the past. And I have absolutely heard him say that. Where he goes, that's all in the past, I only want to look forward. He has said that multiple times to multiple people.
To be fair, in his 100 years of collective marriage to all these women, the whole time, it was everybody else's fault for everything.
Yes. And then we cut over to Robin saying that he's scared that I will leave him. Okay, whatever. And then he's like, my family's been my priority. I was idealistic.
You never saw that, but hey.
Here's the deal. When he said, I thought that my kids, the older teenagers, would all live across the street, I absolutely do believe that is true. He tried to keep Logan at home. He tried to keep Aspen at home. He wanted Maddie nearby. I do think he wanted that.
Right up until he said when they turn 18, they're out.
Nope, that was only Janelle's 2 boys.
Oh, you mean that was just made up for his convenience?
That was only the 2 of them. He has never said that about any of the other ones. And here's the thing. I said he does want that. He just doesn't want to do any of the things that requires that. Because remember, when they were leaving Vegas, Maddie was nearby, and they said, we would stay nearby, but I'm not going to follow them to Flagstaff. We'll go do our own thing. Aspen's the same thing. I don't know why you guys are running away. Like,
in order for him to have all his kids living across the street, he would need to stop moving. Because you can't expect 7 or 8 families to
all
move.
his kids that he took to school every day and tucked in every night. Oh, wait. No.
I am not saying that he was a good father. I am saying, though, that I do believe with him that because remember, he was telling Logan, I want to make sure we have enough space for Logan to come back. He wanted Aspen back in. He wanted Maddie nearby. He did want those kids nearby. It was only during COVID when it fit his current agenda that all of a sudden it was they're 18, they need to move out.
And he was too concerned with just getting his pencil wet.
And, but the problem is, in order to do that, you have to build healthy relationships with your adult children that go both ways, especially once your kids have kids. Because now they have a priority to another life, and they can't do things like fly back, which is something that comes up later on with Maddie, is this idea that he went out to see her second child being born and hasn't gone back since. You know, and it's like, well, it's not a priority, so I'm not going to prioritize you. And that's kind of how, and this is why whenever he tries to blame the moms, I'm like, I have heard the kids complain about how Kody treated their moms, but not since their moms left. Mostly what the kids talk about are things like,
he doesn't
call. He has these unrealistic expectations. He prioritizes Robin.
Well, to be fair, he does step out in this episode and tell Janelle to tell Savannah that he loves her.
I know. I was like, it's
because he doesn't have a phone at home.
It's better not to say anything at all. It's better just to like.
I mean, I wish she bit back there, but
been like, call him yourself, buddy.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. So then he said. Robin is the whole, he's struggling, this is not who he is. And my thing about it is...
Fake, no tears, also.
He does mention he's going to meet with Janelle the next day to discuss, his words, property and business. This is in his self-filming video. So he knew what he was going to this meeting for.
Well, until
with
the
Janelle.
After interview when he says it was for reconciliation, which is delusional at best.
Then he said, Robin is this whole thing. Now, here's the deal. I believe that Kody wanted his teenagers to live nearby. I also believe that even then, Kody was incapable of doing what was necessary to maintain those kind of relationships. And the mothers have always carried. And I think even in Robin's house, I believe even in Robin's household, which the mother has always maintained a majority of, and he just sort of shows up, does his own thing, and the mothers encourage, they talk about
takes
how...
them to school, tucks them in every night.
With the exception of that. But like they always said, when Kody would come over, you'd watch what movies he'd want to watch, you'd do the things he watched. I bet you that's still true in Robin's house. I bet you he's also not... It would really surprise me if he was... Like, he might do those things, but I think those are things that he does because he likes to be in Robin's house.
I mean...
it's hard for me to believe he's some standout dad to Robin's kids and not to, that he somehow miraculously gained a selfish nature in order to be a great father. That's what I mean.
I like doing my own things sometimes, but I also like doing things that you like because you like them, and also I don't know everything I like because I haven't tried everything.
Well, my thing is, we'll find out because if any of Robin's kids cross him, we'll see whether or not he's able to be like, okay, I respect your difference of opinions, or whether he starts, but we'll see.
Well, there's always been a double standard for them. Hunter should have loved when Robin was pregnant right away. Dayton gets time to think about the new pregnancy.
Yeah, and they were right to allow Dayton that time.
I mean, yeah, but
okay.
Not for Hunter.
Next up, Christine and David are ring shopping. I saw this in the sneak peek, and I was like so eye-rolly about it because they started in with the interviews again about how Christine didn't get the wedding she wanted. And when I saw that in the preview, I was like, oh, if the whole episode's going to be like that, I'm going to be over it. Turns out that was all of it. It was a very short segment. They went and looked at rings. She wants a marquee cut ring with a lot of different color metals. She talks about her original ring as one of those clotter rings. Janelle said if she ever got remarried, she just want to get a single gold band, get married on top of a mountain in their jeans. And Meri's like, it's too soon for me to even think about it. I just don't like marquees. I like squares.
Yeah, she does tell us what kind of diamond she likes.
And so
Kody said, I have no idea if she's dating. Once again, I know that she left me in order to find her soulmate. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Somehow that feels like he's trying to make some dig at her. And I'm like, I don't know. I think she left because you abandoned her. And then she decided what she wanted in life, and that was to find her soulmate. But I don't think that was like she was sitting at home in a functional marriage and was like, I just don't think Kody's my soulmate. She was in a dysfunctional... her house had burned to the ground, and now she's saying, well, if I'm going to have a new house, I want it to be this. You know what I mean? And she, how Christine talks about how the focus of a second wife's wedding is about family, not on our marriage, and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so there you go. So he picks out a black ring. She's like, oh, maybe I could have a black ring on mine, and they leave. So whatever. Okay, so now is the big thing, the Janelle and Kody conversation, which is about, I think, as authentic as we're going to see anything on the show.
Janelle shows up first.
Well, the first thing that's interesting is she says, well, we see in a preview or something, that says he hasn't lived in my house in 2 years, which was interesting to me because this is, at one point they say it's almost February, so it's sometime in January. So it's almost February, and which means that it has been 13 months, roughly, since their big fight. Okay, the reason that's interesting is she says he hasn't been in my house in 2 years. And I didn't realize that for 11 months prior to that, he had not been staying in her house at all. I mean, I knew he wasn't staying 1 out of 4 days because that fall they had moved into an apartment.
Well, let's be real, 1 out of 3 because Meri's been out of the picture for a decade.
1 out of 2 at some point because Christine left.
Right.
I knew he didn't want to stay in the RV. I knew that he said he didn't want to sleep on the bed with the dogs, but my assumption was that he was still there occasionally and was just a really poor sport about it.
But no.
But now it sounds like he quite literally did not stay in the RV with her all that winter or that summer.
And he walks in with his work gloves in hand.
It was work gloves in hand. We were like, Glove Watch 2024, you know, as he sits down. They're the same kind of gloves that we like throw the hay with and stuff. So it's always funny when you see him going into a place and he's got like work gloves on. And it's like, you know, rough ride over on the dog sled. What's going on there, buddy? So they sit down and she's like, I haven't seen him in a really long time. And his whole thing is he's like, I know she wants to talk about the property, but I'm not going to do her any favors. I'm like, oh, this guy is the worst. I wouldn't want to split a sandwich with the guy, let alone build a life or have a business or share property. Because he has no sense of personal ethics. He has no desire to be fair. He's just like I think 3-year-olds, they did some study that even toddlers are more fair than this, that they'll like share with people who don't have anything. Mice, they do experiments with mice and rats that if there's like resources, they'll save some so that the imprisoned rat has some resources when they let them out. It's like, that's not Kody. Kody could go learn from some gentle-hearted rat because he's just like, I'm not going to do her any favors. Oh, okay, since you're living in your big old mansion and she's got no home.
Is this before or after he makes the whole conversation in his head that they didn't have about reconciling?
Well, first, Janelle says, I think this is their interview as they're introducing this footage. So it's obviously filmed much later, but it was introduced before we saw it. So she's like, I don't really trust him. I think I might have to talk to a lawyer. So she's like, we need to discuss it's coming up soon. And he's like, not that soon, it's like 3 months. And it's so clear to me how differently they approach life. Because if I had a huge contract where I was about to lose all of my property, 3 months would be short. Him on their time is like 3 months. That's a bajillion years. Like, you know. So anyway, he goes, we need to discuss this property. You know, we need to pay it off. I think you should just buy me out. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
You mean you don't want to live with?
What about us? What about us reconciling? And she's like...
She plays it really, really cool right until she goes for the...
Well, she doesn't say it to him. But, well, one of the things, we're like, man, I really wanted her to dig into him. But the other part of me goes, yeah.
So she starts off real nice.
He holds all the cards, so she's not going to get him all riled up.
And then she mentions how she can't talk about how she feels, and he's like, you can. So she brings up the favored wife, and that goes over like, you know, a fart in church.
So, yeah, so she starts off with saying, well, you could buy me out, and he's like, whoa, 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 what about us? And she's like, you're awesome. When I'm around you, I still feel that hook. I think she has a really high need to be 100% honest, because I certainly wouldn't have volunteered that. But she's like, I can still feel that you kind of have a hook in me, but I just don't think we're compatible. And like John said, you know, she's like, well, there's all this. Well, he starts with this whole, like, I don't want to have a contentious relationship with you. I don't know where I stand with Christine, but Meri and I are now great friends. And I'll never say anything bad about Meri.
Again.
And we're like, oh, jeez. Oh, lucky her, man. And then he's like, you know, and then she's kind of like, no, I'm just not interested. I'm just not interested. And somebody made a good comment, which is, Christine really got on Janelle for not saying the word divorce. And I was like, you know, she's been really clear. Well, apparently not clear enough for Kody. Because he still is like, well, we've not talked about this. And she's like, yes, we have. And so for those of you who don't remember, they had the big fight. She said, if you leave, we're done. We now know they hadn't been staying in the same household. Assumably, they hadn't had marital relations in about 11 months, almost a year at that point. He storms out. They don't talk for 6 weeks. I think most people would say if their husband was residing somewhere else and they had a big tear-down fight and she says, if you leave, we're done, and you don't hear from him, and you, well, she did call him 30 minutes later and say, come pick up your stuff, and he didn't, so she packed it up and put it in the garage. And you didn't hear from him for 6 weeks, I think 99 or 999 out of 1,000 people would say it's done. This is not, if I want to reconcile, I need to come back with flowers and whatever, and I think it's probably over. So he's like, we haven't really, okay, so they had that, they came back 6 weeks later and talked, and he's like, where's my hug? You know, why don't we reconcile? And she's like, no, I'm not interested. Then her birthday, which was in, if I wrote this note down right, it was in May. So the fight was before Christmas. The reconciled talk was like January, February. In May, they went out for her birthday, and she said again, this is really nice, but I'm not interested. Now the following January, he's like, so we've never discussed this. And she's like, we're not compatible. And then she gets into this whole thing where she says, he says, you know, if we were going to get back together, I would have to give her all the power, and I don't want to do that. And she's like, you've been selfish. And he's like, oh, the past 2 years? And she's like, no, for a long time, which is banger.
Accurate.
And he's just kind of explaining, there's all these things I can't talk about. You have these sacred cow topics that I can't discuss. And he's like, well, what do you mean? You know, he gets into this whole, like, well, I was only with, she's like, even my kids are saying how dad is so different than the dad they grew up with. I don't think the dad they grew up with was that great, but I think they were in a culture where the dads were really, really crappy, and he was one of the better ones. And of course, also part of the problem is kids don't realize when they have bad parents as kids. They grow up with that being normal, and then it screws up their whole idea of what love means, because they think love means shouting and yelling and pushing and name calling and stuff. And then they grow up and they replicate that thing. That's the whole, called therapy, and you deal with it. But she says, you know, my kids are, you know, you're so different. And he's like, well, they're just mad about COVID. It's just a recency bias. And it's like, here's the deal. Let's say it was just COVID. Let's say that Kody was the perfect father up until COVID. And then he has been bad for 2.5 years since. They still would be justified in saying, I don't want a relationship with you because the person you are now is bad. And many, many people have encountered this. Sometimes it comes from something devastating like mental illness or drug addiction or gambling or something like that, where the person you knew is just not the same person. Sometimes people are just dicks. And I think I don't know all of Kody's thing, but even if it was just recency bias. And then she's like, and they go back into the whole thing about, well, you want Robin. And he's like, well, Robin's been this great wife. And she's like, no, even before that, which is true, because we and the viewers have been calling out his preference for Robin for years. The Anthropologist did it. Season 1 is probably, if I was going to make an argument, season 1 is the argument. Like, I have friends who are like, oh, you do Sister Wives. I want to watch Sister Wives. And I'm like, okay, you have to watch season 1. And
so
then we can do
it's been like this forever.
10 years. She's been in the family for 10 years. So this idea of it's just recently or it has anything to do with COVID. I mean, it has something to do with COVID. But she goes through this whole story about, she's like, I can't explain my feelings. And she's like, yes, you can. And she's like, okay, well, what about the time that I was talking at my birthday, when I was talking about this discussion that I had with Robin, where you got mad at me for a discussion I had with Robin. He's like, don't you talk about Robin.
And then 2 minutes later, he's like, no, you can talk about how you feel about anything.
And she's just like, no, I just can't. And there was more words, but you get the general idea of what happened. So then it cuts over to Robin saying...
Because we definitely needed to hear from her.
Saying the worst thing she could possibly say. Because I feel like... So they posted this on, I don't know where it was, TikTok, Instagram, somewhere. And I was like, it felt like rage bait just to get the viewers mad. Because if she could not have said anything worse, because she's like, oh, there's this new concept. And we're like, new? This new concept that I'm in control of Kody, that I put a spell on him. Which is, I know there are people who have said that they think she's a witch who's put a spell on him. I do not believe that's a majority of the viewership. I think that is, there are people who have said it, but personally...
Could they have been a witch with a B?
The comments that I see are that she is selfish, and he prefers her, and he is selfish, and they don't have this great plan other than...
Getting his pencil wet.
It works for them, and they're just selfish. And it's not... I don't think either one of them are particularly masterminds. I don't know that Robin's shtick would work on anybody else in the world. I don't know there's another woman who would put up with Kody. I mean, well, there were, but not with the way that he treats...
Don't underestimate how many other people would steal money from other people.
Yeah. So she's like, well, I put a spell on him, and that's just ridiculous. No one can tell Kody what to do. And I'm like, that sounds like exactly what a woman who has a man by the short hairs would say.
And
to be crude, sorry.
This show needs to transfer to Bravo, because we love that beautiful bean footage that proves everything she just said is a lie.
And it's like, no, I don't think Robin is 100% in control of Kody. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Kody defers to Robin on everything. If Robin, I think this is the deal. Kody doesn't care, Robin cares, Kody cares. And so it becomes this thing of, does she control him? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we could really splice hairs.
Depends what we're talking about. Cody's fine with it one day and then had a night with Robin, comes back and he's mad about whatever. We've seen that over and over and over on the show.
He's got one idea and then he goes home and all of a sudden he comes back with a totally different idea. Yeah, it happens all the time. I think in most cases, does Robin make him feel that way? Or does he have such a preference for Robin that he wants to agree with her? I don't think it matters. But the result is, if you are another person, you have no equal say in the dynamic. Kody isn't looking... I think of all of the wives, he cared about Janelle's opinion the most. I think Janelle... After Robin. I mean, yeah. I would say the reason I'm going to say that is when Robin and Kody had a legal marriage, Robin wanted a party and wanted everyone to be there because it was about the family. And I think the only reason he put his foot down and said no was Janelle. I think she sat him down. We know she sat him down and had several discussions with him about it. And I think that he genuinely took Janelle's opinion and was like, no, this would not be good. But I think she's the only one. I think he cared for Christine as much as there was space left over to worry about her opinion. And I think Meri, he often gave her what he thought she wanted to shut her up. I'm not saying he never loved them because I'm not going to concede that point to him. I'm just saying the dynamics that we saw after 20 years of marriage, that is what I saw. So she comes in, she says this whole thing, I can't tell him what to do, blah, 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 blah. And then Janelle brings up, well, this is when she actually brings up the thing about when they bought the McMansion on the hill, Janelle went to Robin and said, if you buy this, it's going to tie up all of the family money. We're not going to be able to pay off Kody Pass. Please be really careful. And then Kody yelled at Janelle at some point later about how dare she go and break down Robin. And Robin comes in and goes, that's not what happened. I didn't tattle on Janelle. I went to Kody and said, I agree with Janelle. And okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So
and
he's
the
like,
earth is flat too.
so he's like, don't go down that road, and he gets mad, and she's like, we can't talk about things. We just need to end it here. Okay, so then we cut over to Meri. She made a big deal on her Instagram where she's like, I forgot that I actually posted a picture of my new carriage house on Instagram, and none of the internet sleuths found it. I remember seeing that picture. I just didn't realize that her carriage house reveal was supposed to be a secret, which is what I think most people did.
So we're
happy.
still at dinner, lunch with.
Yes, there's
okay.
more. There's more to it. They put the seat in the middle. Okay. I am totally fine with this Meri stuff. It's not what I wanted from this scene.
No.
But it's fine. So it's her birthday. Blair, who is her interior decorator.
And a witch. Oh.
No.
Blair Witch.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? I was thinking Blair from Facts of Life. And then Jen are going to show it to her. Her birthday's on January 16th, so it's somewhere in the same time load. She has her online clothing business, which I honestly thought LuLaRoe had gone into bankruptcy and was gone, but apparently it is still a thing. And then upstairs is going to be her gym. It's super cute. This is not what I want from the show. I wanted her friends to be like, I'm glad you got rid of 200 pounds of dead weight with his flabby abs and his pathetic pecs. Like, and his baldy locks.
They do have a flashback when she's talking with her, Janelle and Kody about buying this family house in Utah, and she's like, okay, then I'm going to do it by myself, and I'll get
and that worked out so well for her. And
yeah.
I didn't think, my opinion on that was, it was totally reasonable that when they're trying to pay off Coyote Pass, they don't invest or even loan out money. I was fine with that.
Other than to Robin in her mansion house.
But they should have held Kody and Robin to the exact same standard that they held Meri to, which is, I know, ridiculous. And it is such a blessing that Meri got it on her own because it was one asset. Although, still bugs me. Kody, you remember that Kody went up there and did the ribbon cutting with her after he did nothing? So maddening. So anyway, so this is her property. I'm really happy for her. Her mom passed away, and they took some of her clothing and made one of those memorial bears, and it's up on a shelf. I did genuinely miss up. We saw Bonnie for years and years and years, and I wish Meri would have just moved right there and been with her all that time, instead of trying to work on things with Kody. That just makes me sad. So she's now a single woman. She's still trying to get used to that. The carriage house is cute. I just wanted more from this scene. Just so TLC understands, when they do that, what I want are new information about the family that she is now willing to share. I want her friends dragging Kody and throwing him in front of a bus.
I want Kody dragging Kody with his own words from the filming over the years. Same with Robin.
And she wants to be somewhere that she's wanted, totally valid. Totally fine. I would still take footage like this 1,000,000 times over
Robin.
More of Robin. Yeah. So they cut back to Janelle with a quote from Kody where he says, Freudian slip there. Janelle has a card that says victim on it.
Oh my gosh.
So big Freudian slip that I almost said Robin.
I mean, he said Janelle, but there must have been a mirror, and he must have been Kody or Robin, because that fits, but anyway.
I don't know why I have the word Josephine written down, and I have it written down in a couple spots. So we get back to the same argument, which is where Janelle says there's a few sacred cows that I can't talk about.
And
Kody says you can, and Janelle says there's a bias, and then Kody says she's a victim, which is ridiculous because she's not being a victim. It's like Kody doesn't even know what words mean, and then just someone has a theory.
When you're guilty of something, you just accuse the other person of that thing.
There is a theory, and I do think it's pretty strong, which is that he does read the social media about the show, because I'll start seeing certain words being used, and then about a season later, they start popping up, and he uses them the opposite way. So, like, people...
I don't think that word means what you think that word means.
Well, like, I don't have any proof of it, because it's not like those are the only place those words exist, but I think the big one was when people are like, oh, Cody's gaslighting them, and then the next season, Cody's like, they're gaslighting me. You know, they're like, Robin's always pulling out the victim card, and he's like, Janelle's pulling out the victim card. so I'm not saying this for sure, but he strikes me as the kind of guy with that kind of ego who would absolutely look online and then use his enormous platform, which is his TV show and Robin, to subtly get back at all of this. And I think he hates the viewers. Like the people who go up to him and ask for his picture, I'm like, he's going to punch someone in the face one day. You saw how mad he got when somebody asked him a question and he was like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah." That was in the look back when they provided reader questions, not like an actual thing that happened. Okay, so it's such a... Okay, and then what I loved was, I'm trying to read my notes. So he says she's put on a victim card. And then Janelle says this. She goes, that is a man thing to say, that when a woman is advocating for herself, that he calls her a victim. And I was like, okay.
I don't know if it's a man thing to say. It's definitely a Kody thing to say.
Definitely a Kody thing. There are men who do it. There are definitely women who do it as well. Because I have definitely seen that dynamic play out. Usually with people who are absolutely always pulling the victim card. There's
Name's
that
Karen. I mean Robin. Sorry.
No, but I mean, yeah, well, yeah. But I thought you were making a different reference that no one else but you and me would get. Anyway, no, but there's just, I mean, well, I shouldn't say we've all seen it, but I've definitely seen the person who's always like this persecution complex, who then is saying everybody else has a persecution complex. So I'm glad that she's just flat out calling it out, that he's like not a good dude. And then she's talking about, she says, technically we're still married. And then he's like, oh, she's like, well, I really struggle with that because her spiritual beliefs say that she's still married. And then in an interview, she reiterates what she said last week, which is that she didn't think she could get a release because they're not part of the AUB. So she figured that if she went to them, they would just say, sorry, this is whatever religion you're a member of now. But she added up, she says, but Meri got one, so maybe I could. So if that is a storyline I absolutely want to know more about. And by the way, TLC, I gave you lots of great notes on what I would want to see. I would want to see...
This show moved to Bravo.
No, I would want to see more about the AUB. I know that they probably wouldn't do it, but meet up with other widows. Have Janelle talk to other... See, the thing is, Janelle probably wouldn't want to.
With other widows?
I guess divorcees. I guess I was just projecting what I hoped would be her case, which is that... No, but like where other people talk about what it means to have a release or this or that. Anyway.
Fire the producer that's his friend. Bring in somebody from, I don't know, Bravo.
Yeah, someone who absolutely...
will rake him over the effing coals. And Robin.
So, and then he's like, well, maybe I just want to stay because I'm pressured by my faith. And
he makes up this whole storyline about how they're there for a reconciliation, which is...
And then she
as
says...
nutty as you think it is.
And then she says, I think we're just being really dishonest. Like, neither one of us is interested in a reconciliation. We would be more distressed if we were, and we just aren't. And then she says, in an interview, gold stars Janelle, she leans in and she says, well, big old smile. Well, he is considered a failure in our religion because he lost all of his wives but one.
I mean, that smile... doesn't even do it justice. She is just glowing.
Joyful.
And the smile, like, it's a toothy smile. It's beautiful to see.
And then there's something that does confuse me because he says, well, would you want to build on do you want the property or do you want the money? And she's like, I want the money, but if all I can have is the property, maybe I would build out there. And I was like, wait, hold up. You were talking about moving somewhere with Maddie and Caleb. Why are you even entertaining the idea that you would live there?
Because she knows he doesn't want her to do that, and so she's like...
Maybe that's the case. And then he says, well, you would always be bugging me. And she's like, yeah, so I don't really want to. And he's like, well, if she lived there, we wouldn't want to live there. So maybe I'd just leave Flagstaff. So we know that's not the case because they didn't leave Flagstaff. So then he says something about... Somehow Maddie came up. Oh, she said she would want to move closer to the grandkids. And then he's like, why didn't Maddie call and tell me that she's having a third child? And she's like, well, it's really complicated. She feels like you didn't show any interest in the first two. You haven't been out to see the second baby since she was born. And she's now 3. And so he's like, oh, it's all gossip and jealousy.
Oh, first he says, they all act like I've done something evil. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speak for them whether they consider what he did evil, but that feels like he's doing that thing where you say, I see it a lot from people where they talk about how you talk to a emotionally immature parent and you say something like, it really bothered me when you were a kid that this happened. And the parent goes, oh, well, I was just the worst parent ever. I was just a huge old failure. And it's like a way to be like a straw man argument or whatever. And that's what it feels like he's doing. Oh, they said I did something evil. And it's like, I don't know if the kids said that or not.
To be fair, he did. He said they were all one big family, and then COVID happened, and he had clearly one family, and it wasn't a big one. It was Robin's.
Well, he also called them all names, and collectively and individually.
But it was because, according to him, he had the rules to protect his family, which he meant Robin and her kids. And to be fair, oh wait, no, stop. Robin and her kids are the ones who introduced COVID to the family.
Yeah, well, and it's also things like Logan, Hunter, Maddie, Aspen, like half of the kids weren't even in the home at Peyton, weren't in the home during COVID. You know what I mean? So that's where he gets in this, well, it's gossip, it's jealousy and gossip. And it's like, well, I kind of feel like if it is jealousy because you're giving so much more to certain kids than others, I kind of feel like, I don't know that that's
called for.
I mean, you kind of go, is it jealousy, or is it just acknowledging there's a huge unfair bias and deciding that you don't want to have a relationship with a parent who values you that little?
Ding, ding, ding.
I mean, I read something recently that was something like, I want to be around people who wish the best for me. And it's like, I don't think that Kody wishes the best for his kids. So I don't blame them for not wanting to be around him.
I don't know where you get that idea. I mean, the names he calls them.
Well, then he's like,
saying that he wants to punch them in the face if they disagree with Robin. I mean, I just don't know where you get anything
call
like
them outcasts. They want to get their pencil wet. Call them all a bunch of. Didn't anyone call them a bunch of a-holes or something?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't even remember all the things that he's called the kids, and he has never once clarified that didn't mean Savannah or it didn't mean Aspen.
Well, does it matter when he doesn't even call her on her birthday?
But my point is that there's no nuance to any of this. And so you go, yeah, I'd be like, what did I do? And I'd be offended for my siblings. Yeah. I'd be like, how dare you? My sister had a problem recently, and I was super offended for her that anyone dare say that she's incredibly selfish. And I was like, yeah, how much more do you think that this is happening in this family dynamic? So he goes on about how I used to be a hero and now I'm not. And I'm like, some of that is just when you have little kids, they think their parents are perfect. And at some point they learn they're not. You have to start developing an adult relationship as your kids move into adulthood, which I know nothing about because our child is young. But it's one of those things that, like, the fact that they used to look up to him is not some proof that he's an amazing man. It's oftentimes the dynamics, and like I just said, it's a huge problem for people who have crappy parents because they grow up and they have all of this baggage to deal with. So anyway, Janelle says that she has called this lawyer. He's the only lawyer. Kody kind of freaks out. And he's like, well, we can... She
says it in the nicest way possible. Oh, that lawyer you talked to, yeah, I gave him a call, and maybe we could meet with him to go over the contract we have for Coyote Pass, blah, blah, blah. And Kody looks like he just messed his pants, like he's going to get it, what he deserves.
Yeah. And he basically, my last note says that he says, I'm bitter and don't care.
Seeing the fear in his eyes was worth the whole episode watch.
And so she walks away, and she says, basically, we have no resolution. He says, I made an effort for years, and you betrayed me, I think is what he said. I don't know if he says it to her. It must have been an interview. And then as he leaves, he goes, tell Savannah I love you. And I thought, that's almost more offensive than not saying anything at all. Because are you calling her and telling her?
So they walk out, and he's like, okay, so we'll meet, and we'll talk about this. And then in her interview, right then, she goes, yeah, so it's looking like I'm going to need a lawyer.
Oh, and I want this so bad. I just didn't think they would ever get to that point. I figured she would just. I'm sorry to say this, and this is maybe terrible. I was worried that both Janelle and Meri are just gonna roll over and just take nothing. And I do not want that for them. But it feels like no one ever gets to ever holds Kody accountable for anything, and so the chance that it actually happens seems almost too good to be true. So I want them to get everything they deserve. I am so deeply scared they're just going to be like, oh well, and walk away with like $1.50, and it makes me so upset. Next week we get to see Janelle and Meri talk. Janelle seemed really more genuinely emotional talking to Meri than I think she was with Kody. Did you see where she was like, we had a great family and it all went wrong, and I really think Janelle was going to cry or something. It looks like, I think Christine and David get engaged, all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to say it was a solid episode. I would like more episodes like this. And yeah, let's keep it going. Let's keep dishing dirt. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Love you, man.